Building a Millennial Mainframe Powerhouse, 7 tips to attract and retain the next generation of mainframe developers. Before we begin today's presentation, there are a few housekeeping items that I'd like to address. To maximize the slide area, click on the full screen mode icon in the top right corner of the slide area. For an optimal viewing experience, please ensure that you have checked system requirements along with bandwidth considerations. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the Help link located via the question mark widget at the bottom left of your screen, where you will find system requirement details and frequently asked questions. If you experience a blank screen during the webcast, please try refreshing your browser or pressing F5. To ask questions during today's presentation, please type them into the Q&A widget to the left of the slides and hit Submit. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. Also, notice the Learn More widget. Here, we've added a copy of today's slide deck, along with some additional content, including a great Inside Tech Talk blog post on how to improve and market mainframe jobs for millennial developers by Compuware recruiter Leanne Ulrey. Additionally, we encourage you to fill out our survey before the end of today's presentation. By submitting your response, you will be automatically entered to win a $50 American Express gift card. If you like what you see, please share the webcast with others by easily clicking on any of the social icons in the Share This widget located on the bottom left of the webcast console. We are extremely pleased to have as our speakers today Compuware Vice President of Product Development, David Rizzo, Ensono Mainframe Product Leader, Ken Harper, Compuware Software Developer, Noah Al-Armanazi, and Ensono Mainframe Systems Programmer, Andrew Meister. With that, I'd now like to welcome and hand things over to David.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome everybody to our webcast today. I'd like to get started by sharing with why we're all here today and what we're going to cover. The mainframe workforce, for anybody who is working in it, is certainly changing it, and we're aware that it is a changing workforce. And the challenges that we have as having mainframes and having a mainframe workforce is maintaining that workforce and rejuvenating that workforce. The expectations that the next generation of mainframe developers has is changing, and their expectations are changing as it relates to the company that they're going to be working for and what they expect from that company to give back to them. The work environment and how they will interact with their coworkers and the environment that they'll work in overall, and then the tools that they will be using to do their work. Some of the tools traditionally with mainframe development and mainframe work have not been the same as some of the next generation developers are working with today, and they want to know how they can adapt to those tools or use tools they're familiar with. And so I am responsible for the product development of the Compuware products, and Compuware is a mainframe software vendor providing productivity tools for developers to make them more productive as they work and as the work that they do for developing and maintaining mainframe systems. The slide that you see presented there is the DevOps slide. Many of you may have seen this in some form or fashion. This is one that Compuware uses to represent how we interact with the DevOps lifecycle. So in the infinity loop that has the different phases in DevOps, below we have the individual phases and the type of tools that are needed to work in those phases and the Compuware product suite of tools that are available there. And one of Compuware's goals is to modernize the mainframe and make it accessible to everybody and usable and familiar. Coding on the mainframe, we like to think that it's just about syntax and using the right tools and interacting with different partners and different tools will help developers use and interact with the mainframe in a simple and familiar way. So that is Compuware's goal and what we work to interact in the DevOps environment, and specifically related to the next generation of developers that are coming in and having tools that are familiar to them. And now I will turn it over to Ken, and he will talk about Ensono.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ken Harper, and I'm happy to be here this morning to talk a little bit about building a millennial workforce. Ensono is an IT services company that over the past 47 years has provided mainframe outsourcing and hybrid IT solutions that enable our clients to really focus on their business. We are headquartered in Downers Grove, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, and have delivery locations in Conway, Arkansas, and London. We manage 7 data centers, 5 in the United States and 2 in the UK, where we provide managed services and remote infrastructure management of the mainframe. My role as the mainframe product leader is to make sure I keep a pulse on the mainframe as an industry to ensure our services, capabilities, and our products are really aligned with our clients and more so in the market. Needless to say, I have to make sure that whatever my products and services are can be supported by a sustainable mainframe workforce. Ensono, over the past 3 years, has actively been working on a succession plan and continuing to manage that plan. Currently, we have 10% of our mainframe technical support staff as next generation folks, and they actively work on various technical teams supporting the mainframe, once again, from a managed service and remote infrastructure management perspective. Our plan is to add an additional 10 to 12 next geners over the next 18 months.
So as we talk about the importance of the next generation of mainframe developers, we'll take a look at why is this important and why is it an important topic. And the reason that it's an important topic is because of the importance of the mainframe. As we think about the mainframe, 57% of new business initiatives involve both mainframe systems of record and customer-facing system engagements. So the new innovations that are being done with mobile technology and mobile devices are all interacting with mainframes on the back end, or at least a high percentage of them are. So where the data comes from is still going to be the mainframe. As we do surveys and look at how it affects industry, 88% of CIOs believe the mainframe will be a key business asset over the next decade. So they're still expecting to have to use it, and that's one of the key reasons of its importance for industry. And one of the bigger items is that 80% of the world's corporate data resides or originates on mainframes. And that's 80% of the data that exists today as well as being created every day. Every day, petabytes of data are created, and it is stored on mainframes, and mainframes indeed are the system of record. So using that information will continue to be key and will continue to evolve as different technology for front-end users interact with it. The mainframe data will still be essential. And the industries that are using mainframes, who actually uses them? 96% of the total global banks, 92% of U.S. retailers, 90% of the world's largest insurance companies, 71% of global Fortune 500 companies, and 71% of life and health insurance providers. So a majority of large businesses around the world are using mainframes. That's for their system of record. That's where their important data is stored. And that's why the mainframe is so important. And as we look at and think about a workforce that is changing, the technology that's going to be used is not going to change. It's going to remain. And we have to focus on how to get the next generation of IT professionals working on the mainframe and understanding how to use it and wanting to be working on the mainframe.
So baby boomer retirements are increasing at an accelerated pace, and it's typically driven by personal, economic, and business factors. It's also, one of those numbers can be a value of a retirement plan or a milestone birthday, or in some cases even driven by an event. We've seen situations where a company offers a early retirement package, and by that this has a dramatic effect with mainframe staff, as a large number of people in the mainframe workforce may be leaving in a very short, timely manner. Mainframe jobs are growing, and it's just not systems programmers, as mainframe-oriented business analysts, program managers, and leadership positions are starting to increase and will continue to be a challenge with regard to finding replacements for these positions. The millennials, talking about them for a second here, are highly adaptable, eager to learn, and absolutely love technology. They seem to thrive on change. They have an appreciation and understanding that the non-technical skills are just as important with technical skill sets. And it's very likely that those non-technical skills with communication and leadership are what got them to an offer to work either at Ensono, Compuware, or another mainframe company. So David talked about, the different companies and industries that rely on the mainframe and part of the core. Mainframes are certainly the foundation and the source of data used by large global industries, and will continue to grow faster, cheaper, and more secure. The mainframe really still is a relevant and valuable platform that touches everyone in some shape or form. If you think about healthcare claims, mobile apps, checking account balances, or even something mundane as withdrawing cash from an ATM machine, it's more than likely results will be either creating data or accessing data on a mainframe platform. As technology and mainframe business owners, we have to drive the solution to the issues for our respective businesses. It's not just IT organizations that are affected by the dwindling workforce. The mainframe is a thriving industry with suppliers and products that require a workforce today and well into the future. The diminishing mainframe workforce really has reached critical mass, and the concern from a few years ago has really now become a compelling event.
So we've talked a little bit about Compuware and Ensono and what we do, the workforce that's changing, the importance of the mainframe, and the reality is that we have to maintain this mainframe environment going forward. So both from Compuware and Ensono, we have begun that process of bringing in the next generation of workers, and we have created a methodology that we feel works well to bring those developers on board, bring the next generation IT workers in mainframe into the space and make them productive. So we're going to share with you the 7 steps that have been used and that you can use to help guide you to create your next generation workforce. So those 7 steps are: plan early, look in the right places, identify characteristics needed for success, nurture young developers, cultivate a desirable work environment, don't underestimate their capabilities, and recognize generational dynamics. So the first we'll go into a little deeper is plan early. So to plan early, you really have to get out in front of the issue, and from a Compuware perspective, we've been working on this plan early process for about 5 years now. So about 5 years ago, we started looking at how to bring on that next generation of workforce and what we needed to do. And that involved building succession roadmaps, looking at your teams, adopting an approach for recruiting, internal development, and also using internships. And I think you've done something similar, Ken.
That's correct. Thanks, David. We haven't actually gone 5 years. It's been more like 3. But I think what's really important with regard to the information on this slide is that we have to have complete buy-in and active participation from IT leadership and all the stakeholders within the teams. This is needed to ensure that we have continuity and continued success with the plan as it does change. That's part of it.
Okay, and then looking at the next step 2, which is look in the right places. So you have to identify what is the right place for your business, and location has something to do with that, but certainly the first thing is targeting universities for recruiting and determining where you can be successful in getting those recruits to come to work for you. For example, Compuware being a Detroit-based company, we have to look where we can get people that are close to Detroit or willing to come to Detroit, and every business has to look at where those universities are that they can target. And then also using social media to get the message out and showing what your business does and what you have to offer for that next generation of worker is very important. And then as you start developing this, and something that we have found has worked very well is have millennials find other millennials. And when we do recruiting events and go out, we have millennials go out and do those events so they can share their experience, so that they can show that it is a good and viable career and talk about the mainframe and what they've seen and work through some of that. And again, I think, Ken, you've had some similar experiences.
Sure, yeah. Our take has been to really actively pursue and engage. I think our keys to success have been establishing good and open relationships with local colleges, universities, and even technical schools. With regard to where we are in Downers Grove, we have a great recruiting program and activity with Northern Illinois University in DeKalb. Out of Conway, Arkansas, University of Central Arkansas, and actually we've recruited folks from Texas A&M. The IBM Mainframe Initiative Project Office is a great resource for identifying mainframe-friendly schools as a resource to find places that have mainframe curriculums or even as a club. I agree with you, David. The best way to attract and get mainframe millennials is with millennials, and that has been extremely successful for us. I also want to mention, too, that don't overlook internally within your own operations or service desk or any other related IT team that you have for people who really want to move up or over into the mainframe support area, or with regard to even process-driven opportunities where they have that intellectual knowledge they can bring forward.
All right, and then as we look at the third step in the process, or third tip, I should say, is identify characteristics needed for success. And this is a key item that we found as we started down this path. Is there's a lot of IT students in the universities, and they teach different aspects of IT, and they have different aspirations as they leave school. And really identifying the key characteristics that are good for somebody who wants to work on a mainframe, somebody who wants to work with technology that truly does run the world and is critical to most major businesses. It's not just a game on a mobile phone. It has to be up and running. And some of those characteristics are, passion for learning, interest in impacting many people, where they want to have their work seen by many, and they want to be able to do something that will help many people around the world. Curious about technology. The mainframe has a vast amount of technology and works in many different areas. So having some curiosity to want to go in and look at those different things and do things in a different way is key. And also for us at Compuware, with the way our tools interact with the operating system and get somewhat low level, there can be an opportunity for people who really like to interact with hardware and do things at that level. And then, of course, the ability to work collaboratively. Teamwork is essential to success, I think, in every organization. Right, Ken?
I would agree. That's probably, if you had to look at one, that's probably paramount, is being able to work in a team-like environment. what we typically look for, or I should say me personally, are the aspects of leadership, self-direction, and ability to really participate in a lot of different things, and once again, the wantingness to be challenged. It's not that there's going to be people out there that already have qualifications, but once again, look for aspects where your recruits are already actively involved, leading a club or participating in some sort of a technology initiative that kind of really illustrates and demonstrates what they've done or how active they're going to be with technology.
Right. And so tip number 4 that we have, which is a big one and key to ongoing success, is to nurture young developers. You can get all the right recruiting things in place. You can go out and have great recruiting events and get the young recruits to come in and start working for you, but you have to move on to keeping those people with you, and that's nurturing them and developing them. So that is giving them the necessary training that they need. And some of the things that we did here at Compuware was, from training, we used IBM Redbooks, which are great assets to use, and they are out there free to anyone, so you can point recruits to them that they can look at before they start. But we actually used the Redbooks through a training course, and then we've done language-specific training using some materials that are available to do specific training on the language that you work in, COBOL, or we do assembler here at Compuware, a lot of assemblers, so we do teaching in both of those. And then also training them on how to work in the environment. And it's something new to them, and just helping them to understand how things work and how they can survive along the way. And one of the key things to helping them grow and develop is internships. We have an internship here that we bring in a group of students every summer, and we have a very good success rate of having them come back as full-time employees after they graduate, and that gives them an opportunity to see what they're going to be doing and really get an understanding of how it is to work in a mainframe environment, because it does have somewhat of a stigmatism perhaps, or they're thinking or don't know how it's going to be. And we've had a good success rate. Once they get in and see that it's something that they want to do and it's interesting, when you have those right candidates, it helps build them, and then to build that future workforce and continue to grow your brand or your name at the university as they go back to their university and share with their classmates that they've done this internship, and you start to see that they'll want to, you start building a brand for your company, and other students will want to come, and you get to build that up as you go. And then just everything you do internally, all mainframe companies that use mainframes have a lot of experience, and a lot of people that have a lot of experience are willing to share it, and it's having them do that internal development and helping grow that talent.
I think number 4 here, nurturing the millennial workforce, is also aligned with retention. Probably the 3 biggest things that we've been really successful with is giving our millennials SMART goals, the typical, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based, where they can come in and do something very, very quickly in a timely manner and achieve that early success. Working, that engagement and being able to own something is very important to them. Also, connecting candidates with effective mentors is really a critical success factor when building confidence, trust, and respect among the different teams. And in addition to some of the resources that you talked about, David, with Redbooks and some of the more formal education, it's a good idea to really go out and seek where there's meetups. Recently, ISU, Illinois State University, had a millennial meetup for the mainframe, and making sure that the millennials are in somewhat of a community, once again, to bring some comfortability with engagement and ownership.
And so tip number 5 is to cultivate a desirable work environment. So beyond the training and developing the the next generation developer as they come in. It's also creating a desirable work environment because, as we said earlier, the expectation of the work environment for the new worker is a little bit different. So it's making sure that the culture within the environment is collaborative, they're able to learn, and also celebrating successes and helping them feel confident that what they're doing, they're moving in the right direction, because they are working with sophisticated technology, and it does take some time to get acclimated to it, but it's more than just learning the technology. It's a whole work environment and working together with others and learning through that process, because it is continuous learning that they'll have to do as they go through their career.
Yeah, when you consider that this is probably their first full-time job, just that challenge of being in the workforce, along with, as you pointed out, the sophisticated technology part and all there is to learn, and the stigma, the old-fashioned stigma of the mainframe, it can be a certain concern. So I think that monitoring and making sure that there's a lot of feel-good moments with other people, other parts of the organization, acknowledging them for what they do, and just being there and enjoying their success.
And part of that work environment as well is the tooling that they used. As I mentioned earlier, the tools that we give them are important so that they can feel comfortable with what they're doing and giving them something that is familiar to them. Some of the modern tools that are available with Eclipse front ends, interacting with the mainframe is something that many millennials have used throughout their education, so it's something they're familiar with. And then we also talk about the development process that's used, or how you process, whether it's waterfall or agile. The agile process is becoming very much mainstream and is much more comfortable, we have found, to the millennial developers, having done both waterfall and agile over the past few years. At Compuware now we're 100% agile, but having experience with both, and with the millennials coming in, we see that the agile development environment seems to be more conducive to the way that they act and what they are accustomed to doing. So that all goes to the work environment. And then as we move on to tip number 6, don't underestimate their capabilities. And this is one that we learned kind of the hard way in some cases, but underestimating what they bring when they come in, and the experiences that they have and how they can contribute, because they look at things in perhaps a different way or give a different perspective. So they do have a lot of ability, and they can move in very quickly and become very productive. I know when we started down this path, we thought that it would be perhaps 12, 18, or 24 months before we would get somebody fresh out of college in and being productive on the products. And as turns out, because we have the right tooling, the right environment, we've set up all these things. As new developers come in and come out of college, we have them working and coding on our products in 3 to 6 months, where they are being productive contributors, and they're able to be very successful in doing that. And again, as time goes on, they become more self-sufficient and independent, and they take ownership of what they do and a sense of pride in what they're doing to be major contributors to what we do.
Yeah, David, we don't develop, but we certainly service, and we've been having a pretty good year on the mainframe side as an MSP. So, with regard to your accelerated time frames, we've had our next gen actually be actively engaged in some of our migrations and transitions of new clients, which has been a considerable help to the other workforce.
So, yeah, as we look at whatever aspect of the mainframe business there is, if it's developing software or if it's servicing it or maintaining the system itself, there's the opportunity there for all of them, for all the next generation to come in and help out in all those different areas. And then our tip number 7, which is another one that is very interesting, is recognizing the generational dynamics. So for us at Compuware, and for many I know people that have mainframes and work in a mainframe environment, we have people that are getting nearing retirement, and we have people who are just out of college that are working, and there's a big gap between those. And generations always work differently. So you'll see 3 or 4 different generations of people in your work environment, and recognizing that there are differences there. They can all work together and they don't have to be separated, but we have to accommodate and make sure we're prepared to handle those differences. Having them work together on teams where you have a different generational team and not segregating them, thinking that they can't work together. You get that interaction, that input from each of them that allows some good conversations to happen and good opportunities to do things perhaps in a different and better way. And that will also allow you to increase feedback throughout the organization. And when we look at, as talked about earlier, the DevOps environment, it is all about continuous feedback and going through the process of all the steps there and getting feedback as you go. And it has to be open and collaborative that way. And then the relationships that have to be built across all those generations to get your teams to be productive and to move along. Everybody has to build that working relationship so that they can be productive without feeling that one is moving at a different rate than the other, or that something is happening dynamically that one generation versus another doesn't like. And it is a challenge. It just has to be recognized. It's not something that can't be overcome, but it's something that you have to actively work for and work with on a daily basis to make sure that you keep that integration and those people working together.
Yeah, David, I think the mixing of teams and cross-training with regard to what we do with our next-gen staff on the mainframe side is getting them involved with different teams and pass them through so they get a really good understanding and understand different perspectives from multifaceted areas as well as personalities. I think it's also important to solicit their feedback as well. Ask them, and I think once again that makes them feel engaged as to what's going on, makes them feel important. And that general dynamic of, once again, mixed generations. I know on the way to the office here, Andrew, who's going to talk in a few minutes, was giving me some tips on Pokemon. So, so anyway, yes, that's my point.
And one of the things that we've done here at Compuware with mentors, and we set up with every new developer that we bring in, we set them up with 2 mentors, one being a peer mentor, somebody that's close to their age and has gone through similar steps in recent years. And then we also give them a experienced mentor, somebody who's been in the industry 15, 20 years, so that they can work with them in a mentor relationship and then peer-to-peer and ask questions at different levels so that they're able to gain understanding from both somebody who is new to the environment or newer to the environment and somebody who has more experience in the environment. And that seemed to help create those bonds and relationships between the developers and helps that next generation developer become more integrated into the team and feel part of the team.
So one of the things that we incorporated at Ensono is actually have a millennial lunch where we get together, probably more often than we need to. But anyway, once again, as a community, getting the main millennials together to kind of talk about some of the issues, talk about the challenges, and talk about, excitingly more about the projects that they can work on, maybe in the background, to get some things done in a productive manner.
Okay, so we've gone through our 7 steps and 7 tips that we have, and Ken and I have talked about it from our perspectives of having gone out and hired and trained and recruited and gone through this process. And now we'd like to bring in our millennials, Noah and Andrew, and hear a little bit from them about their experience and how they've been impacted by this. So first I'd like to ask both Noah and Andrew, can you tell us about what you do today and how you got here?
All right. Well, I'm Andrew Meister. Right now, I'm a mainframe systems programmer at Ensono, as the first slide mentioned. What I do now is a lot of third-party software, maintenance, installations, things like that. A lot of hands-on LPAR work, and things of that general nature. I came from NIU, had a bachelor's degree in computer science, and basically just went to a job fair to get accepted into the Ensono business unit. And since then, things have taken off for me in the mainframe world.
Great. Noah?
So for me, I came to work at Compuware as a software developer, having worked in IT in the past, and this was straight out of college for me. I had worked in IT while I was going through college. I joined the team and went through the training that David had mentioned with having peer mentors and more experienced mentors to help guide me along the way. And since I've been here, I've worked on pretty much every single aspect of development, from working on enhancements and bugs to existing products, to creating new products, and working on research and implementation. Pretty much every step that you can think of in product or programming for a ISV.
Great. And so what prior mainframe knowledge or experience did you have before getting your current position?
Before this, none. All my experience up until this point was Windows and distributed.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. I had a pretty similar exposure to the mainframe, which was generally none.
Okay. And Noah, what inspired you to become a mainframer?
Really, the main things that stuck out to me about the mainframe that made it just so interesting was that so many large and important organizations used it, and being able to have an impact on that sort of a scale, just coming in and working on something almost straight out of college, was a huge draw for me. But also just having this platform that, I mean, coming from a school that didn't even mention mainframes, seeing it as this kind of mystery, esoteric type environment where I could come in and sort of explore and discover the mainframe for myself and kind of bring those secrets off and share them with other people that might have not known about them, and my other peers outside of the mainframe sphere. I could go to them and more or less say, surprise, I found something that you didn't know. And just being able to really, really just learn about such an interesting platform has been amazing.
Right. And Andrew, did you experience any stigma from friends or family when you told them you were going to be working on the mainframe?
Well, when I first told my friends and family that I'm going to be working on the mainframe, the general response was, the mainframe is still around? Is that even a thing anymore? The obvious comeback to that would be, yeah, it's thriving, I would say, in this environment. But to the layman, it almost seems like a dark abyss of information, just very cloudy and shrouded. You don't get a lot of frame of reference for the actual transactions that are going on in the mainframe, even though that they happen, every day through ATMs and, bank purchases, insurance purchases, things like that.
Okay. And, you talked about some of the things that are done on a mainframe. What have you done on the mainframe that you did not know was possible before you started working on it?
Just the sheer amount of transaction handling that it can perform. The fact that a majority of ATMs are running on mainframe, and those things handle, every second there's tons of transactions going through, and all that has to be, multi-threaded and handled, correctly and optimized for being on the mainframe, is just super astounding to me. I really enjoyed learning about how the multi-threading can be optimized to a point where, you can have all these different machines running at the same time, and it all just works. They weave in between each other.
Okay, great. And so Noah, you've been with Compuware for over 18 months now, and what do you think it is that has made you so successful?
Well, one of the things that really sticks out is my wanting to learn more about everything that I can touch and work on a personal level. But outside of that, it's been just having the ability to adapt, and just being in this agile environment was so close to like coming straight out of school where you're used to turning in assignments and working on things on just a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Having sprints was just natural for me to go into that sort of an environment so I can have feedback right away, and I'm not waiting for my turn to start working on something or anything like that. And on top of having this agile methodology, having the right tools really helped to make me comfortable with what I was working on. I didn't feel like I needed to relearn everything. I could just go right in and start working on a new language that I was totally unfamiliar with, but putting it in a more familiar environment really helped.
Okay, great. And Andrew, when you think about your career and what you're doing, where do you see yourself going in your organization in the future?
Going up, I would say, is the general direction. If we compare how I started out to where I am now, and then use that as a roadmap to where I'm going to be, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for improvement, as well as just business-wise moving up. I want to call out to tip number 7, actually, of understanding generational dynamics. Me and the other millennials were all involved with, obviously, senior members in a migration of one of our business partners. They were looking to, bring their system over to ours and let us handle all of their data. And we were each given a job. All the millennials had a specific thing to do that really had responsibility behind it. So using that as sort of the first step in the roadmap, that responsibility just keeps growing.
Okay, great. And Noah, what advice do you have for employers that are trying to hire mainframe talent?
One of the big things is just don't assume that millennials are uninterested. Even if, like me, they're coming from an environment where they didn't know what a mainframe is, they've never touched a mainframe before, don't assume that they're going to come in thinking that this is some scary platform that I don't want to touch because I don't know anything about it. In fact, offer them a challenge and say, this is what you could work on. You have the opportunity here to learn about this amazing platform that so many important businesses use. Giving them that sort of a challenge that you can learn all of this will really push millennials to strive to meet those expectations. My personal experience with that was, right after starting, I was put on a project to work on a brand new product for Compuware, and this was like one of the first new products that we've had in something like 20 years. And for that sort of an epic undertaking, for me to be this brand new software developer put on this, it was a huge just moment for me to be able to say, yes, I can work on this. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that this gets done, we do it well. And that's really, I think, what people looking to hire mainframe talent should really try to show to those talents is you can be put on important things. We value your opinions as new talent.
Okay. And along that same line, so why do you think that other young professionals should get involved in this field?
Other young professionals should really look at it as an opportunity to provide a new perspective to something that really hasn't had a lot of new talent coming into the field for a while. With so many schools dropping mainframe curriculum, most students not knowing about mainframes, it's really their chance to be trailblazers on a platform that already exists. But it's amazing that you can go in and really change directions and show everyone that this is how we're going to bring it into the future and this is how we're going to modernize the mainframe. And by doing that, right now it's the perfect time for new developers to come in and sort of open the way for the next coming generation so that they can see how to change things and more or less make it less scary for anyone that sees it that way.
Great. Thank you, Noah. And before we get to any questions from the audience, if you do have any questions, again, you can enter them on the screen. One last question for Andrew. What misconceptions did you have about the mainframe before choosing it as an area of work?
Well, the mainframe to me, coming out of college was a pretty big gray area. I had first heard that the mainframe was still a thing you can get a career in at NIU through their Master the Mainframe program. I didn't know a lot about it, so I didn't enter it at the time. But I assumed it was a lot of very low-level language, and that it would be pretty much a mystery to anyone without training. But that's, I've found, pretty not true. Just as any other language or OS platform, it has a set of rules, and with the help of my mentor, I was able to begin building my mainframe vocabulary.
Excellent. Well, thank you both, Noah and Andrew. That was very enlightening for us, and appreciate your comments and sharing your experiences. So at this point, I would like to remind everybody that there is a survey to be filled out, and if you do fill out that survey, you'll be entered for a drawing for an American Express gift card. We do appreciate your feedback with the survey, so please take some time to do that. And also, there's the links to share on any of the social media if you would like to do that. And so now we're going to just kind of recap our top 7 tips for hiring the next generation developer and mainframe millennials, bringing them into the mainframe. So for those 7 tips, plan early, look in the right places, identify characteristics needed for success, nurture your young developers, cultivate a desirable work environment, don't underestimate their capabilities, and recognize generational dynamics. And with that, we're going to move and start taking some questions that have come in from the audience. So the first question that we have comes from Randy, and what languages are Noah and Andrew using on the mainframe?
Currently, I use mostly IBM high-level assembler. I've also touched some COBOL, and a little bit of C, but mostly all high-level assembler.
On my end, I've dealt with a lot of JCL and some Rex. Yeah, I think that covers a vast majority of what I run into.
Okay. So again, this would be for Noah or Andrew. What do you dislike about working on the mainframe applications when compared to distributed applications?
I guess the one thing that is a bit more difficult on the mainframe is how you can't just go online and do a Google search and have Stack Overflow come up with the answers that you're looking for, just because so many people, even though there are such a highly used system, there really isn't a lot out there on the internet easily accessible. But I mean, that adds an extra level of challenge and complexity to it. Just makes it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, everyone sort of becomes an expert on it eventually, and then they don't need the Google searches, so then it never gets done, I suppose. With me, I'd say the UI is also pretty obscure versus distributed systems.
Okay. The next question we have, I wonder if Noah and Andrew's post-college experiences are being relayed back to colleges. And so the first thing that I'll say related to from a Compuware perspective, how we relay experiences back, and specifically Noah has been this year to 4 different colleges, I believe.
Something like that.
We have done, we kind of lose track, but we go to universities and we do presentations to their IT classes and their IT organizations. At one university, we were there for 2 days and did 9 different presentations to 9 different groups of people to bring that message back to the college students and the ones that are looking or getting close to graduating, so that they see successes. And whenever I go to a university that we recruit from, I always take back a graduate from that university so they can share their experience and show that that's where they came from and where they are now.
Yeah, very similar. I'll certainly turn over to Andrew and Noah in a minute here, but yeah, so it goes back to using millennials as the best recruiting source. While this is related, there was another question with regard to the local college or college that had a recent meetup, and that was Illinois State University. And a good way to find those meetups is, once again, check with your local Z or Mainframe Council. And then also, once again, I mentioned before during the presentation, check the IBM site under the Mainframe Initiative. Christy Schroeder really does a nice job of posting everything with regard to events, with events regarding mainframe and millennials and next gen.
Yeah, I'll say you guys got me beat. I've only, I think, been to 2 college things. This what is that? Illinois State meetup, which had people who were in the industry as well as people who were looking to become into it through the college. And then the other one was UCA, where we went down for, I think it was 2 or 3 days, and did about 8 or 9 presentations to different classes about, my story through the mainframe, as well as, trying to make it as appealing as possible to, new recruits. And I think through that, we actually did get a few internships.
The next question, 2 somewhat similar questions, and again for Noah and Andrew. Are you working on mainframe applications that interface with distributed systems? If yes, explain how you're interfacing. And also, do you use CICS and CICS web services?
So, from my point of view of that, my main product is Expediter CICS, so the majority of my work is in CICS. And along with web services and interfacing with distributed systems, we do that for the Expediter communicating with our Topaz product, and that's all done through APIs that are exposed to Topaz. I actually, for that product that I had helped create, I was in charge of creating part of the API for that between Expediter and Topaz. So working on APIs, working with web services in order to work on web apps, all of that together. Yeah, I've had experience with all of that.
Yeah, it's a bit out of my wheelhouse, to be honest. My company definitely works with CICS. However, it's not what I'm currently involved with. As well as distributed systems. Those are both different groups in our organization. I'm sort of focused more on the operating system and LPAR construction side of things.
Okay, great. And the next question we have is, if the mainframe is so important, then why are colleges and universities dropping it? And that's an interesting question. Years ago, all the mainframes, all the universities and colleges taught mainframes because that's all there was. And then there was this story that the mainframe was going to go away, and there was a lot of those mythical stories that somehow the mainframe could be taken offline, and we know that that's not going to happen. And as Ken talked a little bit about the IBM Academic Initiative, IBM has put a lot of effort into reinvigorating the education of mainframes and at universities. So they work with universities to get mainframe curriculum back in, and there are now many universities, actually in the hundreds I think now, of universities that are teaching mainframe. Northern Illinois University, where Andrew came from, and we do active recruiting, has a mainframe curriculum that they teach and provide some education on that. So it has been dropped, but it is coming back now, and we're seeing more colleges and universities come online with that.
Yeah, UCA, when I went down to visit, was actually looking to get involved in a mainframe program because they have a business down there that works closely with the mainframe as well.
Another question, have either of you used COBOL?
I think Noah mentioned that he has, but I personally have not. Assembler was the furthest I went at NIU, and not currently using it now, but not to say that that's not in my future.
Yep, I've touched COBOL on several occasions. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in COBOL, but I've seen a bit of it.
Okay. And again, these are for Noah and Andrew, always the hits of the presentations. I always want to hear from those of you who experienced it. So what are the aspirations of staying with mainframe and not really learning newer technologies and wanting to move on to those types of roles?
So as far as learning new technologies and moving on to more distributed type roles goes, I mean, I really like being on the mainframe because there's so much to learn on it, and as it progressively gets more, IBM continues to add more and more features and modernize the hardware of the mainframe. That's interesting to continue to try and keep up with all of that, as well as the software back-end sides. I recently went to a CICS business partner conference, and just learning about the directions that they plan to go with that is extremely interesting. So as far as my aspirations of moving to a different platform go, I mean, I really don't have any, just because I can see where the mainframe is going, and I just plan on sticking with that because it is so important.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree there well, I'll refer directly to the question where it says, what newer applications? Who's to say that there's not new applications being developed for the mainframe? You know, I'm sure that's going on. I've seen it go on. So it's just sort of a different path. It's not as, you know, rock star heavy, I would assume. But to say that there's not a solid career there is a bit at fault, I suppose.
Okay, and as we are getting close to the end of the hour, I think that will be all the questions that we can take at this time. And I thank you all for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Kim for some final housekeeping.
Thanks again for attending today's webcast. For any questions that we didn't get to during our Q&A session today, we will be following up with you directly. This concludes today's presentation, and have a great day.